Hey guys, in this part 2 of our series about how to develop healthier boundaries and relationships with food, we're going to explore a dozen ways that you can improve your control over environmental factors to help you win when it comes to food. We're going to look at 6 different components, both for the grocery store and at home, that are going to empower you in your decision making around food and make it just a little bit easier for you to overcome temptations by design, okay? So we're going to start off at the grocery store, and normally I would give a little bit different advice, but we're going to really focus this on the situation at hand with COVID-19 and the fact that we can't necessarily freely run to the grocery store as we need items. It's more of a stockpile situation. So I want to take that into mind. A lot of times I would encourage you to shop solely around the perimeters of the stores, because that typically is where the fresher, more nutrient-dense, less processed food is available. While that is true, I understand that many people probably were thinking more non-perishable, longer shelf life foods in this situation because we don't know how long we're going to be confined to our homes. So you wanted to stockpile with a longer shelf life in mind. So we're going to take that into consideration, but we are going to think about the fact that if you do get an opportunity or need to run back to the store during this time, or in future instances, you can use this same set of skills as well. How you can approach that with this mindset that's going to empower you. So number 1 is going to be think fresh first, okay? Normally this may not be how it works for you. And I know in this situation, you're probably thinking fresh food's not a good idea. It's going to expire. I need to get all non-perishables that are going to last. This is more of a survival situation. I do think it's a good idea to get some canned items or some things that have a longer shelf life, and we'll explore that a little bit. But if you think fresh first, you want to consider buy enough fresh food for maybe at least a week, consume that first, and then let the processed or non-perishable food be your fallback, okay? So buy produce or fresh foods with the thought in mind that those are going to be your first meals until you deplete them so they don't go to waste, all right? So consider when you buy fresh, go ahead and buy about a week worth of fresh so you know it's not going to expire, but you need to plan to go ahead and consume that as the first food in an order of succession, okay? So then the second is going to be eat in order of expiration, just like I said. So a key to figuring out, to getting a longer shelf life out of fresh foods is going to be looking sometimes towards the back of the cooler where they stock it, and you're going to have items with a later expiration date. A lot of times with my mixed kale and spinach salad mix, that's the case. So I'll go to the back and I might get an extra week out of it, whereas some of the others might be expiring in 3 to 4 days, and it makes it last a lot longer in that case. So actually, it's been a week since I've been to the store, and I'm still in really great shape. I've got a lot of fresh cauliflower, cabbage, and even my greens are still pretty fresh because I was able to get some really fresh produce off the shelf. Obviously, it's sustaining in the fridge as well. So I think sometimes we believe that produce or fruits and vegetables will only last a few days. Maybe some do, but a lot of cruciferous vegetables especially have a couple of weeks of freshness out of them if you store them the right way, okay? So you want to eat in order of expiration so as to avoid waste, and then, like I said, use those those non-perishables as backup. Use the freezer is number 3, okay? So the freezer is our friend in this situation, and that doesn't mean frozen pizza, but that means that we have the opportunity here to buy quantities of meat, which I believe has happened based upon what I've seen at the store, and to be able to freeze that, thaw it, and prepare it as needed, but you have that reserve. Here's another great thing about the freezer. It's not just for meat. You can also you can put some produce in there, and it's gonna keep longer as well. It may not be as good when you bring it out and thaw it, but in particular, I would encourage you during this time to consider buying frozen fruits. So strawberries, blueberries, smoothie mixes. This is a great opportunity there because blueberries or strawberries, they do tend to go bad pretty quickly in the fridge. So here, smoothie ingredients, excellent time to make smoothies to get a lot of your nutrients from those, from a liquid form. And frozen berries keep for a good while. So very safe bet there. Use the freezer. The freezer is your friend at this time during the situation. So number 4 okay, is going to be think single ingredients while you're shopping. So you want to consider things that are either going to be raw, have one ingredient, or everything that is in it is a natural ingredient. So you want to try to eliminate those preservatives or artificial ingredients, especially when it comes to your snacks. And always think you can add flavor later. Keep some spices on hand. Herbs and spices are a great way to get a lot of additional health benefits as far as anti-inflammatory, and even there's just a lot of health benefits coming from that. So they provide excellent flavor enhancements for your food, and you can customize that yourself. So you don't always have to buy pre-flavored foods. I know it has a little bit extra work to flavor your own, but you also have the autonomy to make the flavors you want right at that very moment. Number 5 is going to be think satiating over sweet or salty or specific craveable flavors, okay? So you want to choose snacks or foods that are going to be a little bit more dense, that are going to fill you up, and also sustain, that they're not going to quickly pass through and then you're going to be craving those again. Or things that have a very palatable flavor that are going to drive cravings. And for me in particular, sweet and salty, and that combination especially, is just a sabotage for me being able to have control and boundaries with food, because those two flavors combined will drive us back for more every time. And then the final one is number 6, which is limit quick options, okay? So in this time now, we're at home a lot, and I do believe a lot of us have more time to cook or prepare creative meals a little bit. Maybe not everyone, but if you make everything quick and accessible, you're naturally going to consume more. So make it to where you only have maybe a few healthy snacks on hand that are convenient, and make it to where everything else, it has to be prepared. So you have to stop and give attention to that. And if you have to go through that, you're probably going to be less likely to be an impulsive eater, because you're going to think, well, this is going to require some effort. Then I'll just wait till later to eat. I don't want to eat that badly. So those are 6 ways to control our environment when it comes to grocery shopping and empower you within the store. Now that you've successfully gotten some quality items, you're going to get back to home. Let's look at how you can set up your home environment for success also. So number 1 there is going to be strategic placement. So you want to think, if you have gotten some indulging items and some things that were maybe not as healthy, you're going to want to place the healthier, fresher foods in front of those in the fridge or in the pantry, and sort of put those less healthy foods out of sight. And in this case, it's out of sight is out of mind, and that equals out of your mouth, okay? So if you can't see the food, you're going to be less likely to think about it, and that means ultimately you're going to be less likely to consume it. And it's a psychological component to it, but if you can do that, you're going to give yourself an advantage. Because if you open the fridge or the pantry and the first thing you see is that unhealthy snack staring you in the face, most likely you're going to go right for it. You're not even going to consider any other options. So place those healthier options in front. Make it a little bit less accessible for you to get to those items of indulgence that also drive those cravings for you. And then number 2 is going to be downsize your dishes, okay? This is another psychological component you can use to consume less. So smaller plates, okay? It's going to be a lot easier to choose a smaller plate out of the cabinet than it is to have the discipline to put a small serving on a large plate, okay? So win that victory by using smaller dishes, not trying to put a smaller portion, because once you get to the foods, it's a lot harder to make the good choices. Also, same with cups and bowls. Consider the size you're using, and then really try to think, I'm just going to put a serving size in here. I'm not going to put 2 serving sizes and count on myself to stop eating once I get to a serving size. Like, don't count on your judgment. You want to put yourself in position to win up front, okay? So downsizing dishes and really trying to adhere to serving sizes. Number 3 is to ration out your snacks, okay? And this is a tip that someone had actually put on social media, and I thought it was a great idea. So at the beginning of the day, maybe, or the night before, when you are preparing your snacks, set out just enough for that day to a point where when those are gone, that's it for the day, okay? So just a couple serving sizes, That way, you don't have to make impulsive decisions and you won't be caught in sort of in a snare. So you probably want to make that provision when maybe right after you've eaten, so you're not feeling hungry and vulnerable, okay? So again, put yourself in a position to win there by planning ahead. Number 4 is make snacking inconvenient. So again, limit your accessibility. Just all of these are ways of sort of creating a space between you and food, and that might not always be physical space, but in this case, try to make snacking not so convenient. So what I mean by this is you want to have don't want to have a candy bowl or snacks like close to your workspace if you're working from home, or next to the recliner or near the television. Really think about, okay, is unhealthy food always within reach? You want to at least make yourself have to get up and walk to the kitchen and just put a little bit of extra work between you and the food. That's going to cut down on some of that excess and impulsive eating that you're going to do. And then number 5 is don't eat from the container, okay? So this is me standing at the counter eating tablespoons of almond butter right out of the jar. Or this is someone who just dives right into a bag of Doritos, and next thing you know, you've consumed an entire family-sized bag of Doritos. We want to help ourselves from the beginning by taking that food from the jar, from the bag, putting it in a bowl, rationing it out, stepping away, putting that package back in the cabinet, and then separating ourselves from it and just eating that, just putting a serving size in a separate container and then walking away to consume that. That is going to help us greatly, because if we're just counting on our willpower or our psyche to tell us like, okay, you're eating directly out of the bowl and you've had enough, we don't often have good enough judgment to make that call. And then the final one, number 6, is designate no food zones in your home. So this is probably going to be a family decision, and this is up to you guys, but it's important to determine that we don't need to have food in the bedroom. Maybe you don't want it in the living room or your office, okay? Food is supposed to be an act of intentionality and awareness, okay? It's not supposed to just be like an accompaniment to another activity. So it's not like, okay, food is just something we do when eating or watching television, or when we're on our laptop or playing video games or whatever that might be. So you want to think, give food its own space. So in the kitchen, the dining room, whatever that looks like for you guys, but start to set some physical boundaries with food or some barriers and say, because we used to just eat in a couple of rooms of the house, and the family would sit down in the dining room and food was in the kitchen and the dining room. Now it's like all limits are off. Food is everywhere in the home. And so we've got to start setting those boundaries again and realize that if we say no and we create some no food zones, then that's going to help us too, okay? So all 12 of these tips hopefully will empower you and just make it a little bit easier, because we don't want it all to be about willpower, because we're too weak when it comes to that. So we have to set up our environment to help us be successful when it comes to food. So again, I hope these tips were helpful. I encourage you guys to go to Facebook and follow my Forsyth Wellness page or like that. Follow along, check it out. Forsyth Wellness on Facebook, on Instagram, it's at Derek Forsyth. Every day, new information there. We're going to continue this series. I think we're going to go one more video. We're going to look at how to control your thoughts and behaviors as it relates to food as well. Thanks for joining me, guys.